everyone, Kat here. So I know I said my next post would be focused on the teal mask, but I had an idea for this one in my head and I just couldn't let it go. It's a bit of a deviation from my earlier videos. Instead of telling a story, I'm going to be reviewing one. I've done a lot of book reviews in my off YouTube time, and for all of Scarlet and Violet's shortcomings, they really did nail the game's story. There's already been a lot said about the plot lines of Starfall Street and the Path of Legends, and especially The Way Home. Victory Road is generally considered the story-free path. You visit the gyms, you get your badges, all the usual stuff. People still seem to like it, though. Why? Because it's familiar? Or is there a story here that's not as obvious as the other two paths? Today, I'm going to answer the question, does Victory Road have a plot? Each path in Scarlet and Violet has a character who instigates it, and that's the same person whose character arc you're following through the eyes of Florian, or in my case, Juliana. To have a proper story arc, the character in question needs to have a goal, an obstacle to that goal, and some way that they overcome said obstacle. A well-rounded character will have a personality flaw that complicates the obstacle, or maybe even is the obstacle itself. In this sense, Arvin and Penny have pretty similar arcs. They are both hurt in their past, and they're hesitant to trust Juliana with anything more than bare minimal information at first. Over the course of each path, they open up and learn to move forward. But Nemona's different. Does she even have a character arc, or at least a story arc? The Pokémon series has seen a lot of jaded rival characters with near-identical character arcs. Blue, Silver, Hue, Gladion, and Bede all follow more or less the same story beats. They start off better than you, they're constantly one step ahead, but only because they're prioritizing their goal, whether it's becoming champion or retrieving a stolen purloin, over their relationships with people and Pokemon. By the end of the game, you end up accomplishing their goal, but in a better, healthier way, and they're forced to admit they were wrong and you were right. There's a lot of variety in these plots. I don't want to make it sound like all these characters are bland. They're actually some of my favorites in the games. But Nemona isn't one step ahead of you when you meet her. She is all the steps ahead of you. She has already accomplished the goal of champion rank. So that's it, right? No story if there's no obstacle, and the game opens with a goal achieved, right? Okay, not exactly. Because, as we find out almost right away, champion rank isn't Nemona's goal. Her goal is to find a true rival. In this case, her obsessive tendencies are kind of the character flaw because while they've led to conventional success, they've put her in a spot where she can't do the things she loves anymore, which is have a serious, all-out battle. It's a bit of a Mary Sue problem to have, but the game does a decent job of selling it. Nemona doesn't just pine that there's no good opponents out there for her. She acts like a person with a problem is supposed to act. She's out there desperately trying to fix it. In fact, she's so single-mindedly obsessed with finding someone with the potential to rival her that people have to remind her about basic stuff like Juliana doesn't have a Terra Orb yet, and hey, maybe her Pokemon are tired after beating the Elite Four? From this angle, Nemona's character arc looks pretty flat. She's kind of the same person at the end of Victory Road as she is at the beginning. She sort of lucks out that Juliana is this amazing prodigy that somehow manages to challenge her, even when the top champion, who admits to always battling at full strength, can't. But I'd argue that she does have some character change over the course of Victory Road. She learns to use her talents in a different way, to build Juliana up and help her team rather than just to self-improve. Victory Road really pushes this idea that Juliana gets good at battles quickly, both because she's talented and because Nemona is guiding her along the way. Yes, you, as the human player who have been through 9 generations of tutorials, probably already know your type matchups. But in canon, this is the start of Juliana's journey, and Nemona is the one who taught her the ropes. Of course, for Nemona to reach her goal, she needs Juliana to get through Victory Road. And the gyms Juliana challenges along her journey also show themselves as these places of learning. They're not run by the toughest trainers in Paldea coming at her with their full power. They exist as an extension of the school. They're a practical, hands-on way to learn and prove Juliana can apply her knowledge in a real-world situation. When Gita sends her to inspect the gyms in the post-game, the gym leaders all come at her with equally powerful teams. So you get the impression that any one of them could take any slot in the difficulty ladder and be fine with it. But by the same token, none of them treat this educational angle of the gyms as a reason to go easy on trainers. It's pointed out that the vast majority of gym challengers give up about halfway through, making them very real obstacles to Nemona's ultimate goal. Nemona has the same problem all teachers have, really. She succeeds if her mentee does. At each step, she has to decide if now is the time to challenge Juliana, and if so, with what team members. She puts a lot of thought into coming at Juliana with a team that'll challenge her without being overwhelming, and it's fun to see. One downfall of Victory Road, however, is Scarlet and Violet's heavily promoted open world. The gym leaders do not change their difficulty based on the order Juliana challenges them in, and neither does Nemona. Her teams get stronger based on the number of badges. So it creates this really heavy ludo-narrative dissonance that did not need to be there. And it turns what could have been a sweet moment in a linear story into something that just feels hollow. Because if Juliana helps Arvin and Penny first, let's face it, the gym leaders come off as pushovers, and Nemona comes off as a patronizing know-it-all who has zero clue how powerful Juliana already is. But let's talk about the gym leaders in Elite Four themselves. Some of their personalities are pretty bland or straightforward, but others provide a really interesting contrast to Nemona's goals and personality. Like in Pokémon Black and White, all the gym leaders have day jobs in addition to their gym leader duties. Kitty even has this amusing moment where she greets Juliana as if she's a visitor to the bakery, and then gets off her autopilot and addresses her as a gym challenger instead. Each gym leader is distinct enough in their mannerisms and occupation without diving any deeper for the most part. Which is fine because there's 8 of them. I did prefer the way Gen 5 handled the gym leaders in that you see them outside their gyms when they're relevant to the plot. But again, the open world design here makes that kind of weaving of the storylines a lot more difficult. Grusha is the gym leader that I found the most interesting. He comes off as someone who once had as much enthusiasm for snowboarding as Nemona has for Pokemon battles, only he got into an accident and had to quit. You get the sense he's never really fully dealt with that loss. Why set goals at all if you could lose everything through random chance right at your peak? Yeah, I would have loved to see what might have happened if Nemona was somehow genuinely threatened with the possibility of not being able to battle anymore. For example, what if going to Area Zero wasn't just generically forbidden and might actually cost Nemona her title or get her suspended from competitions? It could have been a really great moment where she decides that the bond she's made with Juliana through that final all-out battle and the whole journey is worth putting everything on the line, but instead she just comes along because she wants to battle big powerful guys she's never seen before. So that potential contrast with Grusha never really pans out. Larry is Nemona's polar opposite in terms of enthusiasm level. He treats his work both as a gym leader and an Elite Four member akin to doing household chores. He doesn't like it, but he has to do it. And interestingly enough, he's gotten far in his career with this approach. It suggests that Nemona, too, could find conventional success if she wanted, but we know she wants something more. Larry's boss, of course, is Gita, the chairwoman of the Pokemon League. Unfortunately, unlike Nemona, she comes off as very patronizing no matter when you battle her. She keeps this cool hierarchical distance from those who defeat her. She speaks of Nemona as a pupil who shows promise, but not on someone who's on level with her. But Nemona, by all accounts, would be better at being top champion than Gita would. She's defeated Gita at her best without even going all out against her. And she's demonstrated throughout Victory Road that she not only has incredible talent, she's able to hone it in when necessary for others to grow. I give it a couple years, tops, before Nemona is the one people are calling La Primera. The last character I want to highlight is Poppy, who is probably my least favorite in this whole game. This little girl just straight up undermines the Victory Road story. Why is it a big deal that Nemona is the youngest champion-ranked student, or that Juliana becomes a new champion when a 4-year-old already achieved all that and more? Poppy feels like a character that was designed purely to look different without any thought as to how she could have possibly gotten here. She gets along well with Gita and Rika, so the most feasible explanation is that her family is well connected and sold the league on this concept of, hey, stick our daughter in the Elite Four, the press will love it, she can use her mommy's caparaja, it'll be fine. Honestly, that's the only headcanon that got me through my battle with her. But the end of Nemona's arc was worth it. Defeating the region's Elite Four and champion has typically been a roll the credits moment in the games. But in Gen 9, when Juliana walks out and Nemona is waiting there, it just gives you this, sense of anticipation. The climax of this storyline is just about to start. The dialogue as Nemona is struggling to hold herself back from grabbing Juliana and battling her immediately feels cheesy and authentic at the same time. I love the way Juliana can answer no indefinitely until poor Nemona devolves into this loop of, you? Me? Rivals? Yes? For a Pokemon game, having a dialogue tree of any kind is sort of impressive. If they're going to be stingy with letting the player's response affect the conversation in any way, they at least used it here in the right place. When Juliana's final battle began, I was way more engaged there than I was at any point facing the Elite Four. So, is there a plot arc in Victory Road? Yes, undoubtedly. Nemona is a character who has a clear goal, a true rival, obstacles that get in the way of that goal, the gym leaders, and to a lesser extent her own overenthusiasm, and actions she takes to overcome them, guiding Juliana through Victory Road. Is there a character arc for Nemona? That's the part I'd call a stretch. There's much better examples of rivals who undergo real change in the Pokemon franchise. Nemona had potential there, but the story never really puts her love of battling at odds with anything major. Her character growth is more left up to the player's imagination. Even so, it's satisfying to see her achieve her goal in the end. I think this moment here is what endeared her to everyone the most. Like Penny in Starfall Street, Nemona wants to battle to her fullest and lose. The line when Geeta says that Nemona held back a bit even during their battle was both redundant and unnecessary. Just the fact that Nemona won that battle meant she hadn't hit her limit. Not yet. Not until she tried everything she could and lost anyway. Seeing her exhilaration here was a great moment and a solid ending to the Victory Road story. If you're going to give a character the Mary Sue-ish problem of being so good that she has no real competition, this is how you stick the landing. If I was forced to assign a rating like with book reviews, I'd give the Victory Road plot a 3.5 out of 5. Which would show up as a 4 out of 5 because I always round up with these things. There is missed potential here for sure, but there's still plenty to love. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you found some helpful insights, or at least that I staved off your boredom for a while. My Teal Mask review will go up in a week. I may do it in 2 parts, or at least do a spoiler-free version first. But until then, happy reading and happy training.